everybody. Welcome to this live Q&A for the Dress and Textile Histories programme at the University of Glasgow. We can see that there are people zooming in literally from all over the world. So welcome, good afternoon, good evening. We're thrilled that you could be here. We're just going to kick off with some introductions and let everybody know who you are looking at on the screen. I'll then give you some background information on the programme itself. And then hopefully by that point, you will have generated your questions and we can move on from there. So to start off, I'm Dr. Sally Tuckett and I'm one of the co-convenors of the programme. I'm an 18th and 19th century Scottish dress and textile historian, and my particular research interests at the moment are linen in a transatlantic context. But I'm also interested in any form of clothing and textiles in the Scottish interior and the Scottish home, and in fashion and everyday wear. So I'm going to move around my screen, and the next one along is Sabine.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Sabine Wieber and I'm Sally's co-convener on the Dress and Textile Histories MLitt. My specialism is late 19th century and into the 20th century European design history really, but with a particular bent towards textiles. So I've worked on issues around gender, tapestry production in Germany and Austria. And I'm currently kickstarting a larger project on Canadian Inuit textiles and beadwork in relation to the Scottish whaling industry. So that's me in a nutshell.
Great segues going on now. Whales and everything. Elle.
Hi, I'm Alicia Beta. Everyone calls me Ellie, or Elle. I'm a full-time student on the MLitt Dress and Textile History course. We're currently doing our dissertations, and I'm doing mine on the education of working class girls in Glasgow, specifically looking at the dressmaking skills that they were learning between 1872 and 1918.
Thank you, Elle. Felicity.
Hi everyone, my name is Felicity Anderson-Moore and I'm a part-time student on the course. So I started in September of 2023 and I should be graduating this year. And like Al, I'm doing my dissertation at the moment, which is looking at the role of costuming in living history sites. So there's a lot of places around the world that use historical costuming to convey the past. So that's what I'm looking into at the moment.
Great, thank you both of you. And I should say to everybody that's watching, Elle and Felicity just last week presented their dissertation work in progress at our PG symposium, which is something that everybody on the programme would do. So this time next year, you will be presenting your dissertation research as well. So they've earned a break, and yet we've dragged them back in to come and talk to you guys. So thank you for coming here and doing this. So as promised, I'll give you a bit of just background, brief information about how the programme is structured. A lot of this information is available on the website, so don't worry if you skip over it or you miss out on something. It's all there to be followed. But just briefly, the MLitt in Dress and Textile Histories is a unique programme in the UK. It is a year-long programme, and we look at dress and textiles from the 2D to the 3D. So we consider the textiles itself, making and manufacture, as well as what it was used for. And it's not just clothes that, not just for clothes as, that are being worn on the body, but textiles in the home and interiors. We encompass all sorts of ways in which textiles are being used. Utilitarian textiles. Sabine has mentioned of whalers in Dundee is making me think about jute and sandbags and all sorts of things that are going on. So we're a unique programme in that aspect because it's not just clothing. It's clothing, fashion, the home. Textiles touch so many aspects of everyday life, so it brings in all those different aspects. And over the course of the year, you will take 6 taught courses over 2 semesters if you're a full-time student, and that's spread out over 2 years if you're a part-time student. Those courses will give you an insight into how to study dress and textile histories from different perspectives. We're aware that not everybody is coming with necessarily a specialism in dress and textile history. Elle and Felicity, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about your backgrounds. I think, Felicity, you were a history student. Is that right?
No, I did.
Wrong? Sorry.
I did costume design and construction at the University of Edinburgh, so I had very much a making background, and this course really supplemented that to add in the historical context that I wanted more of for my undergrad.
Great, thank you. And Elle?
I did art history undergrad.
Great. So I think that highlights the interdisciplinary nature of what we do. So the courses that you are going to take will build on your existing knowledge. Most people are coming with a humanities background, but give you the skills and the knowledge to delve into the dress and textiles of a specific era or a geographic location or through a particular methodology. So we have 6 courses that you'll have to take. 3 of those are core courses, so they're mandatory for everybody. The first is Research Methods and Skills, and that's a general course which all of our postgraduate students take together. So it's a really good opportunity to get together with students from other programs, learn about different methodologies, different approaches. So it's not dress and textile focused, but it can be when you can sort of mold your assignment to make it a dress focus, but it does give you a chance to mix with other students in other groups. The first core course that is specifically for you as a dress and textile student is Framing Dress and Textile Histories. That runs in semester 1. And that one takes a different methodology each week and looks at how we can use that to study dress and textile history, starting from object-based studies right up to gender theory, fashion theory, and everything in between. The main assignment for that is an object-based study, which in previous years we've been using the collections of Glasgow museums, which is pretty much right on our doorstep. And you get a real chance to really study an object up close, study it in depth, and then research it as much as you possibly can. The second core course, which runs in semester 2, is Applying Dress and Textile Histories. And that builds on framing. So framing gives you the tools to realize how you might want to explore and study dress and textiles. Applying brings in other people to show you how they've done it and what they've done. It's a real range. It changes every year because we bring in different people depending on what projects are going on at the moment, what exhibitions are going on at the moment. But it ranges typically from the curatorial perspective to film and TV and costume design. So you get a real insight into how people are taking aspects of dress and textile history and using it in their careers. We quite often try and get graduates of the program to come and talk to us as well on that one as well, which is really nice because we get to see them to come back and tell us what they've been doing. So those are the 3 core courses. The optional courses that are running this year for the dress and textile history program. Semester 1 is going to be Victorian Visions, which Sabine can maybe talk about in a minute. And then semester 2 is we're bringing back Renaissance Dress and Textiles, which we haven't run for a couple of years. So we're quite excited about that one. And I'll be running that one in semester 2. Sabine, do you want to talk about Victorian Visions before I move on to the other?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good idea. So Victorian Visions is really a course that covers the 19th century. Given the title Victorian Visions, it is very much based around the UK, but given my own background being more Central European, I think of that Victorian era, the reign of Queen Victoria, quite loosely, and we do explore relationships to the United States as well as to Europe. So this is a course that really hones in and looks very closely at a particular time period and explores the kinds of important innovations and debates around not just fashion, but really textiles and dress more generally. So it's, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
So those are the ones that we're running as part of the Dress and Textile program. As a student in History of Art, you do have access to other courses as well. So we, as part of the Kelvin, I'm going to get the name right, Kelvin Center for Conservation and Cultural Heritage Research. So this is a body which it includes dress and textile histories, but also textile conservation and technical art history. And as a dress and textile history student, you are eligible to take some of the courses that are offered by the other programs. So textile conservation, for example, runs courses called Understanding Textiles and Material Cultures. Those are open to dress and textile students, and that gives you a chance to work alongside the textile conservation program. So it's really great for getting different perspectives and different angles on what you're studying. Then, of course, we also have our work placements, which are very popular. These are limited. We can't guarantee that everybody will have one. They're quite competitive, but they are a really useful option for people that want to get hands-on experience working in the sector. And we have a range of placements, and they vary each year. And perhaps maybe Elle and Felicity can talk a bit about what they've done on their placements. But in the past, we've had students that have worked with Girl Guide Scotland, Scottish Opera, Paisley Museum, the Glasgow Museum, National Museum of Scotland. So maybe that's a good way to bring in Elle and Felicity, just talk about work placements for a little bit, and then we can maybe move. I can see some questions coming in, so we can maybe move on to those as well. So Elle, can you talk a bit about your placement, what you've been doing?
Yeah, sure. So I was really lucky. I did my placement at Glasgow Museum's Resource Centre. So I was lucky in the sense we had already visited there for the framing assignment from our first semester. So I kind of already knew what it looked like, at least from the front. But so myself and another student, we both did our placement there for the 20 days. And we were cataloguing 19th century bags and purses. We had to put together a sort of storage plan as well as cataloguing the bags and purses, which gave us a great insight into sort of the conservation, but also the space and the storage issues that a lot of these places have. But also the fun detective work that's involved with the cataloguing, trying to find out the different dates that they came from, but also who might have owned them. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And Felicity?
I was at the National Museum Scotland, and similar to Elle, I was also cataloguing, but I was looking at fashion plates, which are images rather than objects. And we were trying to update the descriptions of these plates in the museum's records. They were previously just listed as one of a series of plates. So they wanted more descriptions of what these looked like and their measurements. And within that, we also got to research 3 of the plates, or 3 of the publications that they came from more specifically. So I've become a mini expert in 3 different publications, which is quite exciting. And we also got to meet people from all different aspects of the museum. We spent a day in the photography studio. We spent a morning with the conservation lab. So I've got a broader sense now of how that particular institution functions, which is very exciting.
And I think that's a really good snapshot. Oh, sorry, Sabine, you go.
I was just going to say thanks very much for those insights. And I think it really signals that these internships are often focused around specific projects that the institutions that are hosting the students are engaged in. So it's not a matter of you making coffee or running sort of mundane errands. It's actually working very closely with what's going on in terms of projects at the institutions. And I think that's very important to us. And I think Elle's and Felicity's experience kind of reflects that. Sorry, Sally, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, perfect. So should we dive into the questions then? There's a few coming up. So Scarlett Hoff is asking, given the focus on not just fashion, but textiles as a medium in the course, how wide is the historical scope explored within it? So that's the big question, isn't it? Our focus tends to be on the early modern to the modern, more or less. As I mentioned in the courses just then, we are running Renaissance dress and textile, so that's going to be looking at the 15th and 16th centuries, which is as early as we'll probably go. And because we are looking at the development of dress and textile histories as well, that really is when things start to take off in terms of people talking about dress in the way that we would maybe relate to. So the idea is that even if we don't go in depth into a chronological period, you are still getting the tools and the skills that you need through framing in particular and applying dress and textile histories to be able to go and research those yourself. So what we find is that sometimes, even if our focus has been, say, on the 15th and 16th century and then the 19th century with Victorian visions, dissertation topics will still be all over the place in terms of chronology. And I'll let Elle and Felicity talk about what their topics are to give you a sense of this. But that's the purpose of these courses. So that even it's a quite broad remit this year, coming with, like I say, starting with the 15th century and the 19th century. You've got those two sort of bookmarks in terms of chronology. But when it comes to the dissertation, the sky's the limit in terms of what you want to study. The only limitations are really, can you get access to the material? Can you understand it? Have you got the right languages and that kind of thing? So if you wanted to go earlier, we'll do our best to support you. For example, this year we've got a student doing a dissertation on medieval anchoresses, and which is going back to the 12th century. And we haven't done anything 12th century in the program, but she's got the skills to be able to go and research that topic herself. So Elle and Felicity, do you want to talk about what your dissertations are? Perhaps that might be useful.
Felicity, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So my project is looking at the role of costuming in living history sites. So my case studies for that are Colonial Williamsburg and the Real Mary King's Close, which is an attraction in Edinburgh. And Colonial Williamsburg is very much focused on the 1700s, because that's when a lot of the revolutionary action was going on in the States. But Mary King's Close does span a broad period of time that they talk about, running from 1535 all the way through to the Victorian era. So the costumes that I'll be talking about may potentially span that broad of a time range. So if you did want to focus on a particular era, definitely the dissertation is a great chance to be able to do that.
I mean, I know, Felicity, you sort of came with that kind of background in terms of your non-academic sort of activities, but could you maybe pinpoint at what point in the program you started sort of considering that as a topic you want to really focus on, or sort of what kind of course really supported that, or just to explain to students that even though we teach, as Sally said, sort of from the early modern to the modern, that there are places in the program where that interest can be evoked. So, for example, when we had visitors in applying, was that maybe a little sort of initiative for you to think, oh yeah, I want to work on this topic?
I think applying dress and textiles definitely helped steer me in that direction, because that module is less about sort of sitting in the archive and looking at things, and more about how you might apply those in an exhibition setting. So it lets you see that people on the course are interested in understanding costume and fashion and dress from a public history perspective, as well as from a research background. And I think that module is kind of where I started thinking about that, but also previous modules did set that up as well, with lots of different interpretations of dress and textile histories. Like Sally was saying, you get everything from economic history through to gender studies all in one course.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but well articulated. And Elle, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey or your topic?
So my topic is on the education of working class girls in dressmaking skills. I initially set like the borders of the Education Acts, so the first being in 1872 and the second being in 1918. So that's when education was made mandatory for everyone up until the age of 13, the first act, and then up until the age of 15 in the second act. So I guess that's the time period. Usually I steer clear of like the 19th century, so I don't know why I was drawn to that this time, but there we go. But
that's
I think I know. The problem is I enjoy so much of history that I can never sort of narrow it down. But when I sort of found the educational side, the acts really helped to set that field and that parameter. So I guess a bit of context from before the course, I work in a gallery back home and I work with the Learning and Education department. So I think that's where my interest sort of came in to build that, looking specifically at dress, rather than art. I think on the course, the work placement definitely helped, because seeing the collection at GMRC, I was really lucky that I could occasionally go and have a little look at other things that weren't the bags and purses. And that's where I found all of this educational materials. Framing helped with the methodology and different ways of looking at objects, not just thinking about, oh, it's a pretty dress, but like the physical construction and the making of it. I do a bit of dressmaking myself, but I'm all self-taught. So I was really intrigued to see how people in the past have been taught these skills. Is it just generational hand down of these skills, or is this actually taught in an educational system? So, yeah.
Thank you, Elle. Just one more little add-on. I mean, if Scarlett, you are really committed to working on or particularly interested in an area that is maybe not covered by our teaching, although it is a quite widely scoped area that we teach, you do also have optional courses that you can take, and we have often courses in history of art that you could enroll in that maybe covers, let's say, the medieval period in real depth. So there is a bit of a you can put together through your optional courses a bit of a portfolio that then really is tailored to your interests and where you would like to go. Wouldn't you say, Sally?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's within the 6 courses. I think there's flexibility. The portfolio is a great word to use, because you can pick and choose and cover those time periods that you're interested in. As long as it fits in the timetable. Right?
Yeah, that's of course one of the points. Shall I go and address the next question? So that's Olivia asking how many courses are currently still on Zoom. I think that's a really important question to ask as you're making a decision about which university you might want to come to. So all of our teaching is in person, with a slight little caveat in applying, which is a course where we bring external speakers in. Sometimes we will have a speaker come to us via Zoom. So for example, I usually try to get someone from the V&A, one of the important curators there who are working on an exhibition, and their time is just so precious that sometimes they are unable to physically travel to Glasgow. They only can give us an hour or two. So rather than not having this expertise, I will rely on Zoom for some of the external speakers, but only if they are absolutely not able to come in person. So that's the only instance that I can think of right now where we wouldn't be teaching in person, but we'd still, but that's pretty much the only example, or if someone is ill. So all the teaching is in person. We're very committed to that.
And we do, we have various events that might be online that aren't necessarily tied to a particular course. So we currently have a sort of information exchange going with FIT in New York, where we meet with the students we bring the students of each program together twice a year, and they exchange ideas about what they're working on, like dissertation topics or the QP projects at FIT. And so that's all online, obviously, because the other students are in the US, but it's not part of a course necessarily. It's part of the big overall picture. So as Sabine says, everything is, as much as possible, we're face to face. And I think that maybe segues into the next question of where this face to face is actually happening. With the question, somebody saying, I visited the university and ended up in the Kelvin building. Is that where the course is held? If Kelvin building means Kelvin Hall, then it's possible that's the one that you're talking about. A lot of our classes are currently held in Kelvin Hall, which is a big building just opposite the Kelvin Grove Museum, and it's shared with Glasgow Life and Glasgow Museums. So it's a bit surreal. You sort of walk past squash courts and basketball and netball and little kids doing judo and karate down this really long corridor where there's seminar room spaces, a lecture hall, and the Textile Conservation Centre. So the Textile Conservation Centre is based down there. So if you end up doing one of their classes, chances are you'll be down there. We're often down in the Kelvin Hall as well, but we're also in 8 University Gardens, which is where History of Art is. So we're kind of sort of dotted around the campus a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Course registration. Sorry, Sabine, did you say something?
Nope. I was going to wonder if you were going to take the next one about registration.
So if that means so course registration, if that means like when can you sort of enroll on the courses if you've got a place and you've been accepted, that normally opens towards the end of the summer. So mid to late August, I think, is around the time they normally open that up. And then you'll get an email from the university. You'll be given all the information through that. That's all done centrally. We don't have any control over that. But you will get told. Don't worry, it will happen. It's just normally in the middle of the summer, I think.
Yeah.
Do you want to take the next one, Sabine?
Yes, I will. So this is Laurel, who is wondering if there's such thing as a typical week on this course. How much time spent on campus can I expect versus independent research time? So ballpark figure, I would say, and Felicity and Al, correct me if you feel differently, I would say 2 days definitely on campus with teaching activities. We usually teach Monday, Tuesday, or in the second semester, although I think that's going to slightly change, Tuesday, Thursday. So 2 full days, I think you could definitely expect to be on campus with your core courses. It then depends on the kind of optional courses that you are taking and how they are timetabled. So sometimes you'll have to come in more than those 2 days, obviously. And independent research time, I mean, it's not really independent research time initially until you sort of start working on your essays. I think what we encourage you to do when you're not physically in the classroom is, of course, engaging with the material, some of the readings that we ask you to do in preparation for a particular seminar or for a class. So that's quite an intense, especially in the first semester when you're kind of finding your footing, when you're taking framing, which is, exposing you to all these different, introducing you to the different methodologies in dress and textile history. So I think Elle and Felicity will probably agree with me that the reading is quite heavy and consumes quite a bit of time initially. So don't be, don't be deterred, or don't be sort of fooled, maybe is the better word, by the actual classroom time. You have a lot of extra time on top of that getting ready. And then independent research kicks in as you're starting to develop your research papers for the individual courses. And of course, Al and Felicity are now in the thick of independent research time as they are getting ready to start writing their dissertations. I don't know, Al, Felicity, I mean, you'd be perfectly suited to respond to that question. How did you find that balance between classroom time and being physically on campus for that, and sort of time that you had independently or non-classroom time?
Yeah, as a part-time student, it's slightly different from a full-time student because you can kind of choose how you want to structure your 2 years. And I very much front-loaded things by having 3 modules in my first semester. So I was effectively getting the full-time experience that semester. And there was a lot of reading. There was a lot of in-person class time, probably 2 or 3 times a week. And then at the end, you've got final essays for each module. So there was a lot to balance in terms of time that semester. The other ones I basically had 1 module to focus on, which was much lighter, much easier for me. And same structure where you've got readings each week, and then you've got a presentation and an essay to work on as well.
Thanks, Felicity.
Yes, to add, the placement is slightly different as well because it's a full day. So when it's just an ordinary lecture, it might just be the 2 hours that you're in situ, I guess, and then you can go off to the library or go study wherever you see fit. But with the work placement, it is the 20 days at the placement, so it is that little bit longer. Yeah.
Thanks. Good point about the placements. Yeah. Are you okay to take the next one? I know you're coughing a little bit, so I don't want to put too much. Are you okay to take the next one?
Yeah. So Molly's asking how many people are on the course overall and how big are the individual modules. Saying I want to know how many people I'm going to be nerding with. Nice.
I love that.
So I'm afraid I don't have a good picture of what's coming for next year, but I can tell you that this year we've got 17 students on the program, and it was about 17 last year as well, I think, wasn't it, Felicity? 16, 17.
I think it was a bit smaller, like 12-ish, 14. But about that.
I think it's like 16, 17 on each one. But anyway, with part-time students added in as well, so it kind of bumps it up a bit. But yes, we've got 17 this year. Probably going to be around the same maybe next year, we're hoping. But when it comes to class sizes, that's going to vary depending on whether it's a core course or an optional course. So all our core courses, framing, dress and textiles and applying, those are limited to dress and textile history students only, because we want to give people as much opportunity as possible to get into the stores of museums, talk to the curators, get their networks developed and that kind of thing. So we keep that limited. The optional courses tend to be open to students from other programs as well, so they can be a bit bigger. But then that being said, that because there's other options people can go, it can sometimes be smaller. So Victorian Visions, I think, had 12 this year, 11 or 12 this year. But then framing and applying would have had 17 or 18, depending on the part-time students that are involved. So it really does depend. But at master's level, we do like to keep it on the smaller side because it's better for discussion, better for group chats. But that's about it, I think. I think there's nothing really else to add to that, is there, Sabina, for class size?
No, I don't think so. But I love the nerding with. I think Ellen Felicity will agree, hopefully, that there's a real sense of community also outside of the classroom. So you are surrounded by people and you're studying with people who are incredibly passionate about what it is that they're doing and who come from very different backgrounds. So you will form, hopefully, a lovely social network with equal-minded people to nerd with. Okay, yeah, and that's a great thing, the Instagram handle that's just coming up on the screen. Thank you.
Yeah, so we've got information there about the placements that people have done this year, what they've done in the past, some of the objects that we've been looking at, all that kind of thing. Okay, so Tara's got another 2 quick questions. Are there typically exams for this course, and are there TA positions or other work opportunities available? So depending on your relationship with exams, you're either going to love this answer or hate it, but there are no exams. It's all assignment coursework based. So every course typically has a presentation and a written assignment attached to it. The form of that written assignment can vary. It can range from the traditional essay to the object-based report or an exhibition proposal. So we're trying to develop transferable skills in writing for different audiences and different people. But that's the standard, a presentation and a written assignment, and then the dissertation. So there's no exam at the end of any of these courses. Unfortunately, there are no TA positions at master's level. It's going to be a quick year. I think Ellen Felicity can probably attest to how quickly the time goes. And because it is just a year, you kind of need to hit the ground running. And for TAing, in UK universities, at least anyway, that tends to be reserved for PhD students who are around for a longer time and can build it into their network. That being said, I would say most of our students work part-time as well. I don't know whether Ellen Felicity would want to talk about this in any way. So it's not unexpected for students to have part-time work while they're studying on the course. there are visa limitations for some people. Like if it's a tier 4 visa, you can only work a maximum of 20 hours a week, I believe. But there'll be more information on the university website for that, and from the international office. So Elle and Felicity, I don't know if you're happy to talk about outside opportunities and working, and how you fit that with your studies as well.
Yeah. Elle, do you want to go first? Or?
Sure. So I do work. I work conveniently at Calvin Hall. So I go to a lecture and then I go upstairs. But it is not museum-based or gallery-based, but it's just to get the money to make ends meet. It's hard. I won't say it's easy. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity to have a break from the uni side of things and to give your brain like a full rest. But I know there's a couple others that are trying to get like volunteering positions in museums and get the experience that they need. But I don't think there's many on the course that do have part-time jobs unless they're a part-time student, and then they can fit it in a lot easier.
Yeah, that's definitely the experience I had as a part-time student, that I was able to fit in work alongside the course because I was a part-time student. And if I had been full-time, it would have been much more of a challenge. But I work at Mary King's Close in Edinburgh, which is a social history site. So it is a really good way of incorporating information I've learned on the course and also getting to implement some of that public history element in real time. If you do get the chance to do the course and to find a work placement or a job that supports what you're learning on the course, it's really great because you can make connections and you can see how people are understanding the information that you're learning by sharing the new facts that you've come across that week with people in real life and see what they think. But obviously not everyone will want to do that, but I would recommend it if you do get the chance.
Thank you, guys.
Great. Shall I take the other one? The next one, next question. So this is OD, adding to Molly's question, what is the student profile by origin and gender? Is it British and or female dominated? So I think we really pride ourselves at having a very international cohort. So that's really a strength that students come from across the globe, although it's predominantly North America, Australia. We've had students from Japan and then from the UK. And in terms of, so it's definitely not predominantly British. It's a wonderful mix. Europe as well, I should have said. And yes, indeed, most of our students, although we've had exceptions, identify as female or non-binary. So it is, given the subject area, as you phrase it, it would be female dominated, but not necessarily, although in recent years it has been, hasn't it, Sally?
Yeah.
Okay. Molly, how many contact hours are there in an average week? I'll be commuting and would like to know how often I'll be traveling. I think it would maybe be a good idea to have a conversation off this forum around your commuting, where you're commuting from, and all of the structure of that. So please get in touch with either Sally and myself, or myself. We can have a chat. But you will be taking 3 20-credit courses per semester. 20 credit means 2 hours of contact time per course. So it's 6 hours of class time, classroom time, contact time, plus tutorials as you need them and as they become relevant towards the accomplishment or the sort of writing of assignments. So 6 hours a week minimum of being in the classroom, plus some extra. So that's the contact hours. Would you agree with that, Felicity? Al, what are your thoughts on? I mean, not agree, it's a given, but to sort of give Molly maybe a bit of a sense how that found out for the two of you. Again, Felicity as a part-time student and Elle as a full-time student.
Yeah, I actually commute from Edinburgh, so maybe I can offer some light into what that looks like. Most of the classes I've been on have been in the morning, so it's been getting up for an early train, going into Glasgow, and then getting a subway from the train station over to our actual lecture site. So it's usually probably a 2-hour round trip that I like to allow for the train and then the subway. Once I'm in Glasgow, it's really convenient to get to the library. So if you wanted to make a day of it and do your lectures followed by time in the library, that's a really good way of making use of your time. And then obviously you'll have the round trip back. And if you are already living in Scotland, then you might know about things like the rail cards, which can give you discounts on the trains and that kind of thing.
Thanks, Felicity. And Elle?
I didn't commute from home. That would be a good 8-hour journey every day. I did for my undergrad though, and I can definitely say it's quite nice living and commuting in the same city rather than several hours every day. But yeah, it's definitely 2 to 3 days a week that you're sort of in. But yeah, I guess it does vary depending on the courses that you choose, because some people might have like a double stack on one day, and that was quite nice because they could, attend both of them and just have a little bit of library time in between. But sometimes you might have it that is spread over the 3 days.
Thanks.
Lovely. Okay, it looks like we have one question left at the moment, so I'll talk slowly in case anybody has any other questions that they want to add in the chat. But Odie is asking where the visits take the students to, and are there trips outside Glasgow? Short answer is yes. As Felicity mentioned, we have quite a good train system in place, and we're very close to Edinburgh, so we do quite a lot of trips to Edinburgh and Dundee. And we haven't yet figured out what the trips will be next year, but this year we've been to Paisley Museum, which is just outside Glasgow, and the National Museums of Scotland in Edinburgh, the National Galleries of Scotland in Edinburgh, the V&A in Dundee, and of course if you do a work placement that might be in a different city as well, so that gives you another chance to do some more exploration. Trying to think if we've been anywhere else this year. I think that's the big hitters, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Ellen, Felicity, yeah. And Glasgow is really lucky. It's got a lot of museums on its doorstep, basically. We've got the Kelvin Grove at the bottom of the hill. There's the Burrell Collection. There's the Gallery of Modern Art, People's Museum, all sorts of things in Glasgow. And then Edinburgh is literally like 45 minutes on the train. And when you get off the train in Edinburgh, the Portrait Gallery is right there, the National Gallery is right there, the museum is a 10-minute walk. So everything is nice and manageable. It's quite good that way. And we hope to get as much experience of different types of institutions as well. So it's not just national museums, but the local museums, the smaller collections, private collections. We've had lecturers come from National Trust for Scotland this year as well, which has been really good. So yeah, I think that's watch this space for where we're going in 25 and 26. We'll see where that takes us. Sabine and I need to get together and plan that out and talk about it some more.
Yeah. I mean, that's I've lived in Canada for a long time with huge distances. So being in Scotland with a really good public transit system, and it being a much smaller country, we can take advantage of really great institutions. Stirling, you didn't mention. So there's a lot of really important institutions and historical sites literally at our doorstep. So, yeah. Okay, OD, can I ask another question? Of course you can. This one makes me smile. Today the weather was really great. Is the season usually like this, or was this a rare chance? Of course, it's always sunny in Scotland. What do you think? No, I mean, this has been exceptional. We've had, I don't think I've ever had to water my garden in May before, but yes, that's one of the things that maybe Al and Felicity can attest to. The winters are very difficult here. It gets dark very early. It doesn't get light until very late. And the weather is usually what they call dreek here, which means wet and grayish. Although that's very conducive to sitting in the library and studying. So the one thing I learned about Glasgow, though, which I think is so, so lovely, people will take advantage when the weather is nice. People treasure nice weather, and you will be out in the town and everybody will out there wearing their t-shirts and their summer dresses, even though it's only May. And I think that is really lovely. People appreciate the weather when it's nice. And I'm making it sound like it's a horrible summer. It's not a horrible summer, but it's not tropical by no means. Anybody want to add anything? That's just sort of my take on it.
I think you just got to be prepared for all the seasons in one day. Like,
that's a good one.
A raincoat, a jumper, and be prepared, like layer up so that you can do what Sabine says and take the most of the sunshine when it does appear. So yeah, it's changeable but fun. I think so. There's one more question from Nola. The program is listed as 12 months. When does it officially end, and when is graduation? So you will submit your dissertation. It's normally around the third week of August, and that will be the end of your commitments in terms of assessments and what you have to do. We will then mark that. So it's typically basically September to September is the time frame. But once you've submitted your dissertation, you'll have nothing else to do for the program. That's it. That's the end of it. And graduation is normally end of November, beginning of December. So it's a winter graduation, which last year was very dreek weather for Glasgow. I seem to remember it was pouring down rain, and but still a very magical occasion. It's still lovely. You get to walk around the quad and everything, and it's still nice. The official end is for you in terms of your assessment is August when you submit the dissertation, which I won't talk about too much because I don't want to scare Elle and Felicity because it's coming up for them. Oh, thank you, Molly. That's really nice. Not a question, but just wanted to say I'm looking forward to studying this course and meeting you and my fellow students. We're looking forward to meeting you too. And I hope they're just as nerdy as you are, so you can nerd out with them.
Great. Well, I'd say maybe we do another 5 minutes sort of for final questions, or if Elle and Felicity want to add anything to the conversation. But I think we've had a wonderful audience, some really great questions. So thank you very much for all the questions you put into the chats. I think it's been really helpful for us to talk through the program and respond to your questions. So yeah, if you have any questions, now is the time to pose them, or if anybody has other observations to make.
While we're waiting for that, for the 5 minutes, is there anything, Elle and Felicity, that you wish you'd asked or you'd been told around this time when you were coming to Glasgow, like about the program, about living in Glasgow, living in Scotland, anything come to mind for that?
I think the one thing I would say is that like everybody who runs the course is really lovely and really wants to help. They're all really kind and supportive. So if you're the kind of person who's like scared to ask questions, don't be, because you're not going to be laughed out of the room for making a silly comment. You're encouraged to make as many observations as you can. And I think the big shift in my mindset over the program has been going from obsessing about grades to just learning for learning's sake. And I think that's a really good thing to try and go into the program with as a mindset. So that's what I'd recommend for any future students.
That's really lovely, Felicity. Sorry.
And we didn't pay her to say that, I promise.
Oh, but so lovely.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree. I don't think there's much more to add other than make the most of the incredible resources that we have if you do come to Glasgow. All of the amazing galleries, museums, National Trust. The resources up here are just incredible. And sample all the food, because I still haven't tried a deep fried Mars bar. I've been promised one. A tatty scone, apparently that's a thing. But yeah, I think that's that's all I'd say. Make the most of the experience and the opportunities up here.
Elle, what are you doing with your time if you haven't had a tatty scone or a deep fried Mars bar?
Working.
That's something for you to work on. Get that into you. Okay. Oh, just one final question. If Elle is in student accommodation, would she be willing to say what time they got a response about being told about accommodation? Elle, I don't know if you are in student accommodation or not, but that's a central thing. There you go. There's a link down there. Elle, if you've got any insights to timelines.
I found out not too long after I heard back from my course being accepted. So I want to say it was around May, and then it wasn't until I got my undergrad, once I graduated, that I finally found out exactly when I'd be moving in and all that sort of those details. So like August.
Great, thank you. And the link on the screen to accommodation might also help as well, if that gives more information. But thank you, Sabine, Elle, and Felicity for being here. Thank you, all of you, for all your questions. As Sabine said, it's really great to get a sense of what the incoming cohort is like, and it's promising to be fun. I think it'll be a good one. So email us if you have any more questions about the program specifically, or use any of the links on the website. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you in September, and enjoy the rest of your summer.